Abeokuta because the exercise started on time here. So for the people of Abeokuta, they are anxiously waiting for 2 p.m. to come, the few minutes. And some of the people that have just exercised their franchise as this polling unit, this is exactly the polling unit of Olubara Palace in Abeokuta. They are just waiting so that they finish voting here. And they're waiting for 2 o'clock to come, after 2 o'clock, so that they'll start counting, sorting. You can see the agents, security operatives, and the ad hoc staff. They're patiently waiting here that after the 2 o'clock, because one thing we noticed around Abeokuta this morning is that most of the ad hoc staff, they got to their unit on time. They didn't have logistic issue. By 8 a.m., the exercise started in most of the polling units I visited in Abeokuta. So these people, they've been waiting. Some polling units, they finished voting like 12 noon, and they've been waiting patiently so that the statutory time, which is 2 p.m., according to the electoral guideline, that this thing will take place between 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. So to fulfill all righteousness, the ad hoc staff will have to wait. Even as you can see, nobody is coming here to vote again. The agents are waiting. The security people are waiting just for that to be 2 p.m. And by 2 p.m., these people will come together. They will be addressed, and the sorting will start. And after the sorting, they are just going to count the figures and get the result for the polling unit, this particular polling unit. Talking in terms of security, all around Abeokuta is fortified. In and out of Abeokuta, most of the district we're visiting, we have soldiers manning strategic areas. So to reduce any breakdown of law and order to the barest minimum. So most strategic points are manned by soldiers. But in the normal polling units, what you get to see in the normal polling units, like we have the customs here now, we have the NSCDC, they are not holding arms. Everybody is just, keeping, they're at ease, waiting for this process to end. So from Abeokuta here, it's been so far so good, Bukola.
This completion of the exercise that you talk about, you are sure that it's the same in all parts of Abeokuta from feelers that you're getting? Are you sure? Hello, Ayo. Yes, Ayo Dele Ozugbako, our correspondent, senior political correspondent, reporting from Abeokuta. He led us to believe that the exercise has been completed in Abeokuta, and especially in some other polling units where he's getting news from, and that the ad hoc staff are waiting for 2 p.m., after which collation will begin. And from what we also saw, there are no voters on the queue, and it does appear that voting has been concluded in Abeokuta, most parts of Abeokuta. We'll try to return to Ayo to get more news about other parts of Abeokuta to ascertain that indeed the exercise has been completed in that area. So before the break, we were looking before we went to Ayo, we're looking at extension of time and the concerns that may accompany extension of time. I now want us to relate it to the difference between accredited voters and the actual votes cast. If we look at the cumulative figure from the 36 states of the Federation in the presidential election, what we have in accredited votes is 29,364,209, but the actual votes cast is 28,604,190. That's a whopping over 1 million difference. So in bridging the gap in this governorship election, what are those factors that you're looking at besides security that could have been considered ahead of the election to ensure that we sufficiently accommodate more voters so that we can bridge that gap? Janet, I'll start with you.
I don't think that the gap between the 28 and 29 is insignificant, because they may have been void.
They were even void.
Yes,
yeah.
void. A lot
voided
of people,
votes.
yes, voided votes. Many of them may not have known who to
Where to
yes,
thumbprint.
because the list was so endless and the logos were confusing. So maybe
yeah,
that.
but if I were a party agent, that would be a serious concern to me, don't you think?
Yes, but many of them were not educated to or enlightened enough. They didn't have the information that this is my logo, this is a party, except for people who say my own is first or my own in land. That's the only one that, that is very apparent and easy to know. So coming back to your question about how can we boost the voters' turnout. Voters' turnout is expected to be more this time because of the heavy presence of security people. Although some people have argued that it could be, there is a disadvantage and disadvantage, that the heavy presence of security people could create a disenfranchising environment for some people. But I think those that may be affected are those who are going there to cause trouble.
Absolutely. But
it will create an emphasizing environment for those who want to genuinely want to go and vote peacefully and leave the place. They also said that it could also be a disincentive for some of the voters. Again, must be for the troublemakers. But it's an incentive for those who want to go and vote in a peaceful environment. I watched what Ayo, the polling booth where Ayo was reporting from, and I wished we could replicate it all over. Look at the peace. The voting is over and they are just patiently waiting, maturely waiting for the counting to start. And then the results will be announced. And so that is the purpose of this heavy presence. And in Borno State yesterday, the police commissioner came out to say, you know, there is a curfew 6:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. today. That's always the case in Borno. And he said there shall be no movement, vehicular movement, no cattle, no donkey, no horse, no even bicycle. You cannot use bicycle to cross anywhere. And you know, they also use fighter jets and helicopters. So you could see that this election, security agent, government is really prepared because of the antecedents of those who always cause trouble in certain areas, those states that have the history of violence. And you know that there is always this, for this election, there is a kind of party crisis, people who are now having problems between parties and within parties. So that has also heightened the level of anticipated violence. You know what I'm talking about. In a state like Ogun State, for instance, you know there is fighting within. So I'm glad that Ayo said it's heavily fortified. Yeah. So if you just respect yourself and go vote and go home. And in some states, it's not that kind of fight between parties. It is just among the contenders. And in Akwa Ibom, for instance, it's a case of somebody who is prepared to defend his title, whether it's championship or governorship. And there are so many people who are challenging that championship title. So we also expect
peculiar states like that.
Yes, peculiar states with peculiar problems.
It's also the responsibility of some people to help bridge the gap, but we'll talk more about that after this break. Time for another news break. You're still with Nigeria Votes on TVC. At the top of the hour is news with Veronica Dan Ikboy. Stay with us. We'll be right back.